So yeah, I'm a contemporary dancer. Right now I'm working as a freelancer. So my main work is teaching. If you consider how I make my living, that's the only thing with which where you can actually survive. Other than that, I work with Gati on projects. So I'm the project manager in Gati. So as and when the project comes in, I do what I can, and I constantly create. So I always work on creating performances. So there are three aspects. One is art admin, where I mainly do the production work of any workshops or performance or anything. And there is the creative part where I do my own work, and there's the teaching part where I go and teach in universities. I teach professional classes. I work for the dance companies, teaching contemporary dance and helping them with their rehearsals and everything. So
okay,
that's me.
That's good. And I also saw that you are associated with Aide Dance company.
Yes.
This is separate.
Yeah, as a freelancer, I work with all the companies that invite me to work with them. With Aditi, I basically work as I started with giving them classes because they wanted classes in contemporary dance. So I started in 2015 by just going them and teaching them contemporary dance. And from past year, she wanted a rehearsal director for her contemporary work. So for one or two projects, one project right now, I'm a rehearsal director for that particular project. So I'm a rehearsal director for her company for one project. As a creator, I started making work when I was with my last company, which was in 2003, 4, 5. By then I started creating. I was a dancer with Atakalari. So I was a dancer with Atakalari between 2001 to 2007. There I started my creative work, and then very soon I realized my interests were not the same as the companies. So as a dancer, I was into a completely different stream of creation, which based itself in Kalari, Bharatanatyam, the aesthetic values of Jai, which was beautiful as a dancer. I loved it, but as a creator, I didn't connect to it because most of my work dealt with, if I put it in one word, most of my work dealt with human condition. So for instance, my first duet was on call centers, and then the second one was about hierarchy in Indian society, and the next one was about the borders, the national borders, and how it separates people, and then it was about capitalism. One of my recent work was about conflict in Kashmir. This is basically, if I think about all the work, one thing that connects is I react to what's happening in the society right away. And more often than not, my aesthetic is defined by the people who I work with, rather than me going and saying that this is my aesthetics. About the site-specific work, I got hooked on to this very early because Atakal used to do a lot of these site-specific work with multimedia. So that was one of the interests that I had, which started with improvising in public spaces to finding ways to make choreographical choices in public space as a reaction to public space or as a political reaction to the state sometimes. So yeah, in that front, I think we did a lot of playing around. I don't consider all of them as a performance per se, but we did a few performances which in collaboration with a lot of people. One was dealing with water. It was called H20. I can send some images and maybe a video of it. I was part of a creative team in Europe which was called Area, which was the performance was called Area because basically it was putting bodies in urban spaces. And this was an Austrian choreographer. He's a theatre director and a choreographer. He does a lot of things. It's Hopmeier, Georg Hopmeier. Right now he's busy in doing video games. He's designing video games. So yeah, I was part of that creative team as a performer, as a as one of the creative person. This was in 2010, and after that I've been in and out of doing public performances as and when it comes up. I think there's a lot more places from past 5 years to go and study dance, because I can only say it from my experience. When we started as dancers, there was not a lot of options. There was classical form and there was Bollywood. There was nothing in between to catch on to. So from past 5 years, I know that there's a lot of dance training per se that happens in this country, where you can access everything from classical form to belly dancing to ballet to modern dance to flying low to whatever you want, hip hop or contact work and capoeira. So there's a lot more teachers, and sometimes also people from Europe coming and spending time in India, and so they're getting information about forms, technique. That's never been a problem now, but the problem, the place where we lack is the critical thinking when it comes to creating. So there's very few places where it allows people to just go and do and not judge them for what it is, because until you fail few times you don't find your own voice. That's my belief. So there's this idea of technique, and that's technique is translated into work, which is good in a classical form where they train technique as a form. But in contemporary dance, I have a feeling that most of the work looks like a class material. That's the youngsters, but the positive thing is they're moving. They want to go and dance. So there should be a venue where people start thinking a bit more critically about their work rather than just vomiting technique on stage. I'll be killed for saying this, but
I won't say it. I managed to hide it somehow.
So that's one of the things that I started realizing. So my classes doesn't deal with giving them a particular form, because that's what they hook on to. It's like, oh, I'm doing flying low, I'm doing Feldenkrais, I'm doing Limon, I'm doing Martha Graham, which is great, but that's not your work. That's your technique. That gives you a tool to do something else. So, but at the end of the day, it's not the work that you're doing. You're just training yourself. So I try to make my class as neutral as possible to body, and I still work with all the elements that I've learned. You just don't give them a tag, and really encourage them to question the class, question the training, question the creativity around you, question the way that you do ballet, question the way you do yoga, but still do it. But how can you be critical in every aspect of training and creation? And people are ready. They really want to invest their time. And it's really surprising to see people jumping into it, because we have no system. The government doesn't give you anything to hook on to. So, but there are people who are creating collectives, creating small companies here and there. So we have some kind of a flexible resource system where we hook on to once in a while. But I see a lot of positivity in young dancers. See, there is creativity, and there is preserving something that someone left you to preserve, and like, frankly speaking, when I see classical form, it comes from a very particular place, a very nationalistic place, where I may not disagree or agree with it, but it has its own place. So the kind of funding that's been given to that comes from a different place, and I'm happy not to be part of it, because I don't want funding to control my work. I would rather be funding my own work and do the work that I believe than just doing what the nation wants you to do. And I love classical form because it has a lot of wisdom. The way they say the story, the body, the pedagogy that they have. It's beautiful. Everything from Bharatanatyam to Kathak to Kalaripayattu to Kathakali. I've been in spaces, and I totally respect the people who dedicate their life to do it. But at the same time, I don't feel that I'm in that space. And most of us who are into contemporary dance, we don't complain. It has its own space. We are 100 million people. We have space for classical form. We have space for contemporary form. I would really wish the government take note of us, and maybe there are some system which helps us. Maybe it's slow. Maybe at some time it comes. At the same time, I'd also be skeptical if I get a funding from a overpowering, as you said, funding body. They will overpower your creative freedom. So it's a in and out kind of a situation, and most of we will never get to perform in a big festival if you're not doing a classical form. But most of the time, the people who come and watch those festival will also not get what you're saying. They're in a completely different place where they say like, oh, India is great because we were great 100 years ago, but India is shit now because what was happening now. So because I had these problems where I was doing my performance and people used to come and say, oh, you can't say this because capitalism is not totally bad. Look at around us. We're all rich and we're all like, yeah, you're only looking at the city. Look around what happened to a person who built this stage. So I got into this kind of arguments. So there was this place where I was invited where all the classical people come and dance, and I just presented my work. It was really hardcore. I was just basically talking about how farmers come and build a city. It was very simple, and what happened to them. It's as simple that. And I didn't use any words, but it was all physical, and they got it. And I said, no, you can't say this. How can we develop without the use of labor? It's like, I'm not saying that you should not use labor, but they should also get the equal opportunity as you get. Look at the person who built your stage. You're sitting behind the stage, sitting on the floor and eating some cheap food, and you're eating French wine and whatnot, cheese. So I'm happy that people are just good at getting orgasms on classical form. I'm also happy that I go and irritate people. So that's that. Please don't put it. I already don't have work in this city. So I might be jobless for the next 100 years and I don't care. I started working with Aditi from past year and a half. And before that, I know her work because I've seen it in festivals from as a youngster. So I know this kind of work from a long time. I can say two things about Aditi. She's super open-minded. So when I go in and teach, she's there the whole time. She's the most senior dancer, and she does every small thing that I throw at the like some youngsters, they give up. So in that sense, I really like her energy, and she's really clear about her work. So when to a point where the Indian government gave her the one of the biggest awards. It's called Sangeet Natak Kala Academy. That can be given to an artist, saying that she's been awarded for Indian contemporary dance achievement. She said no. She was like, I'm a classical dancer. I do contemporary dance because I like it, but I know that I'm really good at classical form. If you want to honor me in classical form. Don't honor me in contemporary dance. So she's really clear in her her vision. So when I see the company, I can see that that's one of the company which has the maximum rigor, where they come and they're all rehearsing every day. They have a class every day. It's a company. It's a company.
Permanent company.
Well, permanent as it can be, in arts. Like I'm pretty sure people spend 5-6 years with her, and they move on and do their own work, and that's the nature of dance anyway. After a point, they would like to do their own work. So she has clear distinction between classical performances and her experimental performances. And with her experimental performances, she does experiment, but she also likes the fact that she can stay within the form. So she respects the form too much to really completely go on through and dance naked and things like that. So she does have classical influence in her work, in contemporary work, but still she breaks it. So in that sense, knowing a lot of other people around me, she is one of the most open-minded, and also the kind of clarity she comes with is really refreshing. And she also seeks out, she really goes and pushes the boundary with music. She pushes the boundary with lighting. She pushes the boundary with stage, which a lot of classical forms doesn't do it. So she really seeks out getting the right designer, right sound engineer, or it's very clear. And most of us don't, except for maybe Attakalari, who has the resources, and few other companies here and there. We just make do with what we have. It's just that we don't have that kind of So yeah, that's what I can say about her. And yes, she travels a lot. Like, merci beaucoup.